So today we are going to discuss in lecture 4 we are going to discuss about system development life cycle. The acronym we can simply use the acronym SDLC. So can you see the screen? Can one of you confirm whether you guys can see the screen?
Yes, madam.
Okay, thanks. Right. So in today's lecture, the learning objectives are as follows: to know how information systems are built, to understand the problems encountered when you develop information system, to learn the strengths and weaknesses of development methodologies. So we'll go through a recap of what we have learned up to now. So regarding what we have learned up to now, so an information system is an arrangement of people, data processes, interfaces, networks, and technology that interact to support and improve both. So to improve both day-to-day operations and also problem solving, to support problem solving and decision making needs of management. So basically, information systems are used to support day-to-day operations and problem solving and decision making requirements by the management. This keys doesn't work. Sorry, yeah, right. So we'll go through an overview. Like any other product development, information system development requires careful analysis and design before implementation. So, like any other, so when you develop a particular product, so before developing that you need to decide. So, likewise for information system development also, it requires careful analysis and then designing before implementing the actual information system. So, how we are going to do system analysis and design. So, what do you mean by systems analysis and design? A systematic approach to identifying problems, opportunities, and objectives, and designing computerized information systems to solve a problem. So, basically, in a systematic way. So, first of all, you need to identify the problems and what are the opportunities available in the business and what are the objectives of the business, and then you can go to this designing of the computerized information system to solve those identified problems. So, what do you mean by a problem? So, a problem means an undesirable situation that prevents the organization from fully achieving its purpose, goals, and objectives. Yeah. So, let's say for a business, the sole purpose of a business is to uh, get profits. So, there can be some undesirable situation which prevents the organization, the business, in achieving that target profits. So that can be considered as a problem. So what's an opportunity? So an opportunity means the chance to improve the organization even in the absence of specific problems. Yeah. So irrespective of whether there are problems, specific problems or not, so what's the chance for an organization to improve? So that's simply termed as opportunity. So then we'll focus on to today's topic, which is SDLC or System Development Life Cycle. So when you consider these information systems, most of these systems are so large and they are complex, right? So without a solid plan and control, the entire system might collapse. Yeah. So if you then and there try to implement a particular information system, at the point there's a chance that this entire whole system might collapse. Right? Thousands of system development projects have failed or been cancelled because of these complications. Yeah. So system development life cycle means it's the process in which you develop the particular system. So these system development projects have failed or is cancelled because they are so complex. Mm. Because of that, several techniques are available to develop information systems. So there are certain techniques which can be used to develop information systems. The most formal approach is known as the systems development life cycle. So system development life cycle is an approach which is used to develop information systems. So in system development life cycle, you have these five phases. Initially planning and then analysis, design, implementation and support. So basically it's like a by the name itself you can understand it's a cycle. So starting from planning to analysis, design, implementation, support, then again and again with new requirements that are identified, again planning can be done, and then analysis, design, implementation, support. So it's a continuous process. If we analyze these stages, we might come across the following activities done throughout the system development life cycle. Yeah. So basically within these stages, there are certain activities that are performed. So one is identify problems, opportunities, and objectives, and then determine information requirements. So in terms of what are the opportunities available and what are the objectives and what are the current problems available in your business, then you can determine what are the information requirements. And then you have to analyze system needs. As a system, what are the requirements? And then design the recommended system. Then you have to design that particular identified system, and then develop and document the software. So basically, these information systems mean software, so they can be developed or implemented, and then you have to document the software. Why? Because when with the march of time, there can be improvements for the software. So if the it's the software done by a group of people, so uh, so it's easy for somebody else, some developer, to understand if whatever already done is documented. So then implement and evaluate the system. So once you develop the software, then you can implement in your business, and also you can evaluate the system whether it's working properly and whether it's better than the manual systems. Likewise, and then what you need to do is you have to maintain this system. So we'll discuss each of those stages identified in SDLC one by one. First, we'll start with planning. So software system development life cycle is driven by the realization that there are deficiencies in the system and they need to be addressed. Yeah. So the sole purpose, the basic need for this system development life cycle is that we have realized that there can be deficiencies, problems in the system, right? So inefficiencies, likewise, there can be problems in the system and they need to be addressed. So how we are going to detect them? So in order to identify what are the problems in a particular system, right? In terms of different criteria, you can check whether it lacks the efficiency, whether it's not that reliable, and then when you look at the sales and revenue, lower sales, loss of revenue. So by these factors, you can identify whether there are deficiencies in the current system. So planning is the fundamental process of understanding why an information system should be built and determining how the project team will go about building it. Yeah. So planning means basically the fundamental process where you understand why you need an information system and how the proposed information system is going to be built. So under planning, you have to identify systems business value to the organization. So why we need this system and how it is going to add a value to the organization, right? Then you can perform a feasibility analysis. Feasibility analysis means whether this project or the information system is worth and whether it's possible to be done, right? So in terms of technically and also economically. Economically means you are checking whether this project is worth enough, and technically you check whether you can build that, whether you have necessary requirements, not requirements, resources to build this information system. So objectives of the proposed project. So objectives of the proposed project should be to reduce errors or costs, right? And improve your service and speed up the processes, right? So it should not be ego related since it's cool. I mean, like some people believe that having information systems, it's some privilege, right? So you should not think that it's just a privilege, right? You should identify it as a resource where you can improve the service of the business and speed up the processes, efficiently producing products and services, reducing errors and costs likewise. So that should be the objectives. Those should be the objectives of the proposed project. A committee analyzes the above points and decide whether the system should be based. So within a business, a committee will be appointed uh, from which they will evaluate whether this proposed system is worth and whether the organization can build that, right? And check whether they decide whether this system should be built or not. Right? So after this committee's approval, after project approval, moves to project management. Then you have to move to project management, right? So there you have to come up with a work plan, right? So in the work plan, within the work plan, you have to allocate the resources, right? And then identify the project development team, right? Who are the people who can build this project? And then what are the resources that we should allocate for this project? So project plan will be the deliverable or the output at this stage, at the planning stage, how the project team will go about developing the system, what will be delivered when. Yeah, so basically project plan is composed of how these people in the project team are going to develop this particular system and what will be delivered. That means what will be the output of the project and when that output will be provided or delivered. Right. So after planning, the next stage is to analyze. So analysis stage. The next step is to collect information required for developing the new system. Yeah. So you need to collect information. Under this stage, the main thing that is done is to collect information which are required to develop this new proposed new system. Okay? The requirement
Yeah.
analysis. Sorry. Any question? There are two messages, I think. In the chat. Okay. Okay. No issues, right? Right. So, on the analysis stage, the basic requirement is to collect information that are required for developing this new system, right? So basically, this requirement analysis part involves understanding the goals, processes, and the constraints of the business for which the information system is being designed. Yeah. So basically, under this analysis stage, requirement analysis, it involves understanding. So identify what are the goals and what are the processes and what are the constraints or problems of this particular business, right? for which the information system is being designed. Typically done by a system analyst. Yeah, so this stage, the requirement analysis will be done typically by a system analyst, right? Analysis strategy, right? So the strategy is composed of two ways, right? So analyze current systems and problems. So you can analyze the current existing systems and what are the problems, right? And then analyze the system that's to be built. Okay. So here we need to have a clear vision of the kind of system that will be created and the level of change that it will bring to the organization. Yeah. So when you analyze this particular system, right? So you need to analyze what sort of a system that is going to be implemented or proposed, right, and implemented later. So and the level of change, how it's going to make a change in your organization. Business process automation. So simply we call it BPA, right? So leaving the basic way in which the organization operates unchanged. Yeah. So business process automation is some sort of methodology that is used under analysis, right? So basically, here what happens is leaving the basic way in which the organization operates unchanged. So it won't change how the business was operating up to this point, right? So it will keep it as it is. How the organization operates, the organization's operations won't be changed, right? So, and use computer technology to do some work. So, some of the work will be performed by using the computer technology, right? So, by this approach, actually the impact on the business will be less. So, if there's a negative impact, right? So, for an example, let's say you are dealing with these databases and nodes, right? So, if there's an issue in the database, let's say you lost all this data, right? So, if you get rid of all the functionalities um, all of a sudden, right? As soon as this information system is built, right? Then the risk is high. So through this business process automation methodology, it's going to only gradually introduce the computer technology to your business. So the impact on the business will be less. Right. So these are the, these are, so these BPA, business process automation, and then BPI, BPR. So these are the requirement analysis strategies that can be used. Then you have another methodology which is known as business process improvement or BPI. So making moderate changes to current business processes which increase the efficiency and effectiveness, take advantage of new technology. So what happened here is that changes will be done to current business processes so that the efficiency and effectiveness can be improved. So it will target the current business current business processes which are actually have an impact on the efficiency and effectiveness of the business. So those processes, so those existing business processes will undergo moderate changes, right? So basically, moderate changes means they are going to take advantage of new technology. Okay? Then you have business process reengineering, simply termed as the acronym BPR, change in the fundamental way in which the organization operates to take advantage of new ideas and so in business process reengineering, by the name itself, you can understand you are going to re-engineer the business process. So from scratch, you are going to change the fundamental ways in how the business operates, right? So basically, they are going to take advantage of new ideas and technology, right? Then under analysis, earlier also we discussed, we have to gather requirements, right? So requirement gathering is done under this analysis stage, right? So requirements gathering is an important activity to be performed in the analysis phase. So it's one of the most important tasks that should be performed under this analysis stage, right? There is no one perfect means for identifying and gathering requirements. So you can't say this is the perfect way to identify and gather requirements, right? So there are some common techniques that are used to gather information, such as interviews, questionnaires, observation, document analysis. So these are some common ways, those that are used. But anyway, depending on your business type, these can be changed, right? So you can't say this is a perfect way. So it depends. So what happens in these interviews? Yeah. Plan formal schedule meetings with stakeholders and employees. So stakeholders means all these people who are related to the business, right? So you have these meetings. You conduct meetings with stakeholders and employees, right? So these are done in a planned manner, in a formal way, right? So these meetings are scheduled with these stakeholders and employees to get their feedback on the proposed information system, right? So, because people at different levels of the organization will have different perspectives on the system, right? Need to select interviews carefully to cover all aspects of the system. So, when you select these interviewees, right? So, you have to carefully identify who are the required people for this, because then only you can cover all the aspects of the system, right? Interactive, flexible, adaptable, so flexible has been repeated. Okay, so having interviews. Interviews is a process which is interactive because you interact with each other, right? And it's flexible, right? And adaptable, right? But the disadvantage is it's time consuming, right? Having interviewing people from different levels of the organization is it's going to be a time consuming task. Then what about questionnaires? So questionnaires means set of written questions for obtaining information from individuals. So you can provide some written questions for the individuals in the business, right? Impersonal, often mass produced. Yeah. So this is impersonal. So because in interviews, you know who proposed some sort of an idea, right? But in these written questionnaires, you don't know because you don't need to mention the name, right? So these are often mass produced, done in large scale, right? Response rate may be slow, but one of the problem here is response rate may be slow because uh, some people, when they get these questions, even when we need feedback for the lecture, say some students are reluctant to return these sheets, right? So likewise in the businesses also, some people can discard them and even not return them, right? Suitable when number of respondents is larger. So when you have a lot of respondents, a lot of people in your business, then it's hard to have individual interviews with them. So this approach is better when there are a lot of people in your business. Produces specific limited accounts of information, but you can't say you will get specific, right? Uh, you can't say yeah. So you can't say these will resolve the general issues because uh, these are provided, these questionnaires are answered by individuals. So they might be focusing on their specific areas only. And also that will tend to produce limited amount of information, right? If the population is very large, it can be sampled. So when the population, I mean the crowd, the respondents are too large, right? Then these can be sampled because focusing on each and every questionnaire answer is going to make it a mess, so complex, right? So better it can be sampled when the population is very large. Then another approach that can be used is observation. Observations means there we observe how people actually work and how business processes are carried out. So you can observe how people are working and how these processes are carried out. useful when the users cannot convey sufficient information and know has only fragmented knowledge. So if the when the users, right, have doesn't have enough information and they only have fragmented knowledge, right, constrained knowledge, then this approach is better. Performance of the people may be affected by the presence of the observer. But the issue is that even during your exams also, if let's say a lecturer or some invigilator, if somebody is going to peep into your paper, it's hard for you to write, right? I mean, answer the paper. Likewise, even when we are working also, when some manager or some other person is or some supervisor is looking at you, looking at the employees, it's hard for them uh, to work, right? Kind of feeling embarrassed. So performance of the people may be affected by the presence of the observer. That's an issue in this approach. Information gathered relates directly to observed performance, fact, not opinion. Yeah. So the information that are gathered will be related to observed performance, right? So we will get facts, not opinions of people, right? Because we don't talk to them, so we just look what is happening and we will collect some facts, but not the opinion of the individual. Right. Another thing, another approach on the analysis is document analysis. Review system documentation to understand existing system. So, existing, first of all, you can analyze the existing system by referring to the documentation, right? Or business process documents. Yeah, so can look into these sort of documents like paper reports, policy manuals, user training manuals, organization charts, forms. So if you refer to these sort of documents, then also you can analyze the existing system, how the current uh, business processes are conducted. Right. So this is all about analyzing, right? So after analyzing all these aspects, the system analyst or management information system manager have to develop a system proposal. So after analyzing all these, then these system analyst or MIS manager have to develop a system proposal, right? Present the requirements and processes identified and highlight the benefits of the new system. So then the requirements and processes that are identified should be presented. What are the requirements that are available and what are the required processes? So those should be presented, and benefits of the new system should be highlighted as well. Approval committee decides whether the purchase should continue. Then again, the approval committee will be looking into this system proposal and check whether this purchase should be continued. Yeah. Then we have the design phase, right? So the design phase decides how the system will operate in terms of the hardware, software, user interfaces, etc. Yeah. So under this design phase, actually, we can decide how actually this system is going to operate in terms of hardware and software and user interfaces, right? Shifting the focus from understanding the problem to figuring out a cost-effective solution to the problem. So up to this point, we were focusing on understanding the problem. Now we are going to shift into figure out a cost-effective, right, solution to the identified problem. So under design strategy, you have to decide these things, whether to build or buy. Sometimes building an information system will be costly for an organization because it's a totally different task, right? So whether it's worth of buying, I mean outsourcing, right, from a software company. And who will build? Who is going to build this? In-house or outsource, right? So these are the decisions that we need to take under design strategy. Right? So then we'll discuss about build versus buy, right? The advantage of developing your own system is that it can be customized to the exact requirements of your own organization. Yeah. if you are going to decide the system within your organization, then you are capable of getting the exact requirements done from the system, right? Because within the organization only that is produced, so it's easy to be customized. When you purchase a generic off the shelf, so now if you go for these one of the examples, accounting systems, there are already available accounting systems in the market, right? You can just pay and buy them. So these are known as off the shelf systems, right? Like you buy products from a supermarket, you can get these products from these people, right? From these people who have software companies who have already built these systems, right? So you can pay and purchase them, right? When you do that, the organization may have to adapt its ways to the limitations of but there can be limitations in the software because that is designed generally, not in a customized way. So your organization may have to adapt its ways to the limitations of the software, right? So, but anyway, the cost to implement is low, right? And time to implement also low because they have already implemented that in other businesses also. So they might help you in implementing that. So there will be less time and a low cost, right? In implementing. Already proven in other because it's already proven in other organizations because some other organizations also using those off the shelf systems because they are done in a general design in a general way. Cost and benefit should be carefully evaluated to decide. So whether to build or buy, you need to analyze these costs and benefits. So costs and benefits should be carefully evaluated in order to take a decision. Yeah. So at the end of the system design stage, what happens is a technical specification is developed. Technical specification is you decide in terms of architecture, in terms of user interface design and database and file specification. So what are the languages you are going to use if you are going to build it, right? And then what are the databases you are going to have? Likewise, you decide from hardware to software to networking to database to everything you have to specify, right? So that's why we call it a technical specification is developed. So architecture design in terms of hardware, software, and network, you have to come up with the architecture design, right? User interface design. So user interface means with those interfaces, UIs only, the people are going to interact with the system, right? So screens, layouts, interactions, inputs and outputs, right? All those things should be designed as well, right? And then database and file specification. So what sort of a database you are going to use and what sort of file formats that are allowed, right? So those features also should be decided. What data to be stored at where. Then we have as the next stage implementation. Right? Systems implementation is the construction of the new system and its delivery into production or day-to-day operation. Yeah. So system implementation is basically construction of this new system and it's delivered into and delivering that system into your production or day-to-day operations, right? So for implementation, so basically this is coding, right? It requires programming or coding, but it's more than programming. So you can't just say it's just programming or coding. So it's many more things, right? Construction because you have to test, right? And collect feedback and then again change make changes in the proposal likewise. So there are a lot of things happening in this under this implementation stage, right? So basically under construction, so what is done is develop the actual system. So actual system is developed, more attention is given for testing. As I told you, testing should be conducted before actually implementing this in your real system. Most expensive and time consuming. So this is the most expensive and time consuming task because this is the actual construction of the system, right? Testing and quality control must be performed at every stage of development. Yeah. So that's why we need unit testing because when you develop a particular unit, right, a particular area, that should be tested before integrating that to the overall system, right? Then you have to do the system testing. System testing means after integrating all these components, so you have to test the overall system. And then acceptance testing means, so you have to give the system to users who are going to actually use this system, and check whether they are convenient in using this system and whether this is effective and efficient. So acceptance testing is that. And then installation. So installation also should be done, right? So that is installing the new system because it's a software, right? Database creation and population, network configurations. Yeah. So database should be created because that's the place where you store all the data, and it should be populated. Populated means you have to fill that with data, existing data, right? And then network configuration, you have to decide what sort of networks you are going to use, whether it's a LAN, WAN, right? So depending on your requirements in the business, right? And also under implementation, you have to migrate to the new system. That means adapt yourselves to the new system, right? So basically under that you have to train the user, right? And also there's a conversion from old system because you already had a system, maybe a manual system. From that you are going to convert yourself to a new system, right? Documentation of the system must be done throughout the system. So when you develop the system, when the developers develop the system, they have to do this documentation. As I told you earlier, also it's easy for the new programmers or the new developers when they are going to make some changes in the future, right? So it's easy for them to understand the existing system. So documentation of the system is essential. So you have two types of documentation. One is system documentation and the user documentation. So in system documentation, it assists programmers and analysts build or maintain the system. Yeah. So system documentation is actually helpful for programmers and analysts to build or maintain this system, right? Then what is user documentation? So user documentation means, by the name itself, you can understand it's some sort of a manual, right? Because it assists users to operate the system. Then the final stage, which is support. So once you implement this new system, so you can't assume that everything is done because maintenance is necessary, right? Why? Because to eliminate the errors in the working system during its working life. So you can't expect this system will work perfect, right? There can be errors, right? So to eliminate or remove these errors, right, and to adapt that to your organization, maintenance is essential. The business requirements, and also with the march of time, the business requirements can change, and management and users demand new features and expansions. So that happens, right? So if the requirements change or these users and management demand request for new features and expansions, then the system should be moderated. Right? User may have trouble performing sometimes even with the user documentation. Some people may have problems performing several tasks, right? So they need support. The the job of overseeing and making these modifications and providing help is called system support. So system support means actually uh, seeing these, overseeing these modifications. That means they are expecting these modifications will be required in the future, right? And then making this modification when required, and also providing help for the users and users of the system. So this is basically known as system support. Sometimes more money and effort is devoted to system maintenance than to the initial development of the system. Yeah, it can happen because with the march of time, users can demand for new features, right? And lot of requirements may change. So as a result, system maintenance may be more costly than the initial development of the system. Yeah. Then we'll discuss what are the strengths and weaknesses of this system development lifecycle. The primary purpose of the SDLC method of designing system is to provide guidance and control over the development process. So basically, the primary purpose or the main purpose is to provide guidance and control over the development process, right? there can be strengths and weaknesses to this methodology, right? So SDLC management control is vital for large projects to ensure that the individual teams work together. Yeah, so this SDLC is a protocol or a process which is required, essential for huge projects, large projects, to make sure that individual teams collaborate with each other, right? There are also financial controls to keep track of the project expenses. So um, within SDLC, you can incorporate financial control so that you can keep track of the project expenses. The SDLC steps are often spelled out in great detail. Yeah. The formality makes it easier to train employees and to evaluate the progress of the development. So SDLC is a formal methodology, right? So it makes easy to train these employees because they also have an idea how this system came into play, right? Because it underwent so many stages, right? And to evaluate the progress of the development. And also it's easy to evaluate the progress of the development because from the starting stage to the final stage, you know what are the activities that were performed, right? Because those are done in a formal manner. So it's easy to evaluate the progress of the development. Ensure that steps are not skipped. So um, if you if you rigorously focus on these SDLC steps, right, it ensures that steps are not skipped, right? So all the steps should be adhered. By adhering to standards while building the system, it's easier to modify and maintain later. Yeah. So when you adhere, or adhere means agree, right? So when you agree with the standards and when you basically follow these standards while building the system, it's easy to modify or change the system and maintain it later, right? But it increases the cost of development and the development time. But one disadvantage is that it increases the cost of development because there are a lot of stages, right? And the development time also is increased, often less than 25% of the time is spent on actual writing programs. Yeah. So basically, if you consider all this SDLC life cycle, right, software development life cycle, actually more often this less than even 25% of the time is spent on actually writing programs. So like 75% of the time is you can't say wasted, is utilized to other tasks, but those are essential. So that can be considered as a disadvantage anyway. SDLC works best if the entire system can be accurately specified in the beginning. So SDLC actually can deliver a good system, right? If you accurately specify, if the system can be accurately specified in the beginning, that means planning should be done properly, right? Users and managers need to know exactly what the system should do. For that to happen, actually, users and managers should know what are the actual requirements, what the system should do, right? Rigidity of SDLC tends to make it difficult to develop many modern applications. But since this is some sort of a rigid platform, rigid process, because there are certain standards and certain steps, right? So if you are going to follow the same, right? Sometimes it can make it difficult to develop many modern applications as well, right? Has not really solved the problems of projects being over budget and late. Yeah. So SDLC, you can't make sure that it is going to solve these problems related to the projects being over budget and projects becoming late, right? Okay. So basically, these are the strengths and weaknesses that are put into this table, right? So under strengths, you have control, increased development time. Yeah, so development time, the increase in development time can be controlled by this, and then it's easy to monitor large projects. Detailed steps are there, as we discussed, and documentation is provided. That's better for future changes and maintenance. Well-defined user input and ease of maintenance, development, and design standards are used. What are the weaknesses? Control increased development time. Yeah, so you can say control increased development because development time will be uh, so controlling this increase in development time can be a weakness as well because as we discussed earlier also it can be a problem for implementing these new features, new technologies, right? Increased development cost. System must be defined upfront rigidity, hard to estimate costs, project overrun, user input, sometimes limited. So these are the facts that we discussed in the previous slide. So basically that's the end of the lecture. Anyway, today I'm going to give you guys an in class. So I'll be uploading that. So I'll be stopping the sharing. Yeah. So I'll so what I'm going to do is in the chat I'm going to upload can't we upload it? I think it's we can't upload. I thought of uploading the document. Anyway, that's okay. I'll share the screen. So we have only 46 people. That's fine. Right. So don't ask others to come to the Zoom now because there should be some competitive advantage for people who actually participate in the class. Right. So issue is actually I can't upload it here. Cannot upload any document to the chat. So I'll be sharing the screen so that you can look at the give the in-class question and then you can answer. So basically what you need to do is so this is one question, right? So you will be given around 45 minutes. No need, actually 45 minutes are not required. But let's say so that I'm going to reduce. Yeah. So no need to write the question, right? So I'll be uploading this to the Moodle. You have to mention your index number and your name, right? And please mention when you what you call. So you will be you can type this, right, in Word or Pages, so any other thing, maybe Google Docs, right? So if you don't have any privilege, I mean, not privilege, let's say you are using your phone for the Zoom, in that case, you can write the answers in a paper and then you have to upload, you have to send the photo, right? So they also you have to mention the index number as such. So anyway, when you are naming these documents, please name them like this. I'll mention how to name. So this is the way that you have to name MIS in class and then your index number, right? So it's better if you guys can upload this in a PDF format because due to OS incompatibilities, it's easy for me if you send it in a PDF format. It's better. Anyway, if you have any issues, that's fine. You can submit it in any format, right? So this is the format for to name your document, right? And so here you are not allowed to submit, right? So what you can do is I'll provide my email. So I'll provide one of my emails. So my email is vijayalena@gmail.com. So you guys can send the answers to that email me. Uh, so make sure so only people who are available at this moment can submit. So some people have arrived. So earlier we had only 4 to 7. So now we have 51 means without me there are 50 people. Okay, let's say 50. So 52. Don't ask others to come. So then the newcomer, because since this is recorded, right? I can see who are coming new to the class. So don't let others come. Uh, so I'll not be giving any marks to people who are coming only for the in class, right? So we'll stop at this level, 51 people. 51 means without me it's 50. So people who came just now, you won't get marks anyway. So you have to answer this. Uh, don't write the questions, answer and name as I told you, and send me a mail. But remember, you can't send the mail after the lecture. So I'll be winding up the lecture until 3, no? So I'll wait until 3, right? I'll put this into Mio. I'll wait until 3 for the mails to come. So the mails that are going to come after 3 won't get marked, right? So here I cannot upload, otherwise you could have uploaded here. Right. So if you have any questions, please let me know now regarding the in-class or today's lecture. So people who came just now, you won't get any marks, right? Because I'm going to check the recording, and then I can identify who are the people who were there earlier and who came just now. And better to take some screenshots also. Don't allow anybody else to come. So so if somebody has any issue regarding what you call, I mean, regarding these, now people are increasing. So that means I'm going to check who came late and then who has invited them. If the batch rep has put a message, something like that, so the batch rep is going to lose the mark, right? So this should not be done by people who are not in the lecture, because if you have any issues regarding this connection and all, then you have to put a mail, not that put a mail or convey the message. I don't think that's for real, right? So I have taken the screenshots of the people, and I will check in the recording as well. So don't let others also come, right? So please, this is some simple questions are there. Please answer this and send me a mail before 3 o'clock. So it's more than enough. So in the chat, for all the 3 questions, three small questions, no? So 1 hour is more than enough. So once you send the mail, once you complete this and send the mail, you guys can leave, right? After sending the mail only. Yes. So this is the way how I'm going to take the participation for the lecture. Anyway, in classes are given, no? Then and there I'm going to give in class. Okay then. So if you have any questions, put in the chat, right? I'll be checking then and there. So remember, before 3 o'clock, you have to submit the answers to my mail. So next time I'll try to create 24. No, there's no word limit as such. Word limit means for basically for the first question, let's say like 50, 70, 70, 50 to 75, yeah, something around 75 words, right? It's like 5 sentences, no? So 75 words for the first one, and second one around 50. Third one is about providing examples. So for this, around 50 words. This is around 75 words. So don't write too much. Around means it can be like 70. The range should be 70 to 80, right? Okay, so this is not that of a big deal, right? So please send the answer before 3 o'clock. I'll be here anyway. I'll be checking then and there, right? And don't let others who are not in the class, don't let them come, because I have already taken the screenshot. Okay, then thank you. By the way, if you have any issues, just put in the chat.
So you got 10 more minutes. So whatever you have written by now, it's better to send. So some people have already sent me around 6 papers. So others, make sure you send them. Send the answers as soon as possible. I mean, before three you have to send, right? So whoever who send me the answers after 3 won't get marks, okay? So only 19 people have sent me by now. So we had 51 or 2 people. So basically like, so there are at least 30 people yet to send the answers. So I have received like 46 uh, answers by now. So we'll wind up the session today. So if you have sent the mail, I may have received, right? So it's hard to check all these names and all. Right. So thank you for your participation and see you in the next class. So don't send me the answers after this, okay?